Hello there and welcome to Films According to Chris Wyatt presents Sequels Revisited. Well, I'm continuing with our Halloween-themed horror movie reviews this month. Today we're looking at a sequel to one of the most famous and highly regarded horror films of all time, The Exorcist.
The original film was released in 1973. Adapted from a novel by William Peter Blatty, who also wrote the screenplay, the film was directed by William Friedkin and starred Ellen Burstyn, Linda Blair, Jason Miller, and Max von Sydow. It told the story of Regan McNeil, a 12-year-old girl who becomes possessed by a demon.
You know what she did? Your daughter?
As the possession worsens, two priests are called in to perform an exorcism and free the young girl from the evil spirit.
The power of Christ compels you! The power of Christ compels you! The power of Christ compels you!
The film was a resounding success. Not only is it considered a classic, but it's also been dubbed the scariest movie of all time.
Now, you may or may not agree with that, but even if you don't like the film, it's hard not to be impressed by the success that followed it. I mean, today it's hailed as a classic, it was seen by virtually everyone, praised by critics, and even picked up 2 Oscar wins, one for Best Adapted Screenplay and one for Sound Design. Plus, nominated in 8 other categories, including Best Picture. For any film, that's impressive. For a horror film, that's virtually unheard of.
While The Exorcist was probably the last horror film that would need, or to be honest, even should have a sequel, we actually got not one but 2 sequels, and a prequel, and an unofficial non-canon prequel. It's a long story. We'll look at this one some other time.
Whether or not you like each film in this series, there's one thing you can't deny. Each Exorcist film is its own strange little creation. And I think Exorcist II might be the strangest of them all.
Exorcist II: The Heretic was released in 1977. Linda Blair, Kitty Wynn, and Max von Sydow both returned for the sequel, though Ellen Burstyn and director William Friedkin both declined. Set 4 years after the original, the now teenage Regan lives in New York, and while seemingly adjusted to her new life, undergoes psychological evaluation following her exorcism. Meanwhile, a priest, Father Philip Lamont, is called to investigate Father Merrin's mysterious death after the incident with Regan. While reluctant at first, he nonetheless accepts the task, and in doing so learns more about the demonic entity, and also discovers that Regan may still be in danger. Despite the hype, the promise, and the talent on display, the film was met with near-unanimous derision from audiences and critics. Even today, it's called not only one of the worst sequels of all time, but one of the worst horror films ever made. It's hard to pinpoint exactly what went wrong with this film, but many hold the film's director, John Boorman, accountable. While Boorman has been praised for directing well-regarded films like Point Blank, Hope and Glory, and the classic suspense thriller Deliverance,
I've been seeing squeal like pig. Oh, which squeal? Squeal now. Squeal. Squeal. Squeal louder. Louder.
any talent the filmmaker possessed is completely absent from this. Why is that? Well, for one, he didn't even like the original and wanted to take the sequel in a completely new direction. That in itself isn't really a deal breaker, but it certainly didn't help. But the film's main problem is the script, which can be described only as a complete mess.
Now, there are a few things in Exorcist II that, had been explored a little bit more, could have actually made for an interesting film. There's the politics of the Catholic Church, the struggles between science and religion, and even a better exploration of the spiritual elements of this series. Unfortunately, what we're ultimately left with is a confused and messy screenplay, laughably bad attempts at creepy imagery, and locusts. Lots and lots of locusts.
There are so many locusts in this film that it's kind of perplexing. I'm sure there is some kind of attempted symbolism here, but it really doesn't come through. It even becomes downright hilarious when you see James Earl Jones dressed in a locust costume. Don't ask, it makes about as much sense as anything else in the film. Now, as I mentioned, the film does try to explore the nature of evil and dig a bit deeper into the spiritual mythology behind the series. Namely, it explores the origin of Regan's demon, and even giving it a name.
I am the Zuzu.
This, however, leads to a frequent problem with many horror sequels, namely that the more we know about something, the less scary it is. This in itself could have all been sidestepped, except for the fact that the narrative is a convoluted mess that rarely makes a lick of sense. The actors do little to help the situation. The returning cast members all look completely lost and confused.
I was possessed by a demon. Oh, it's okay. He's gone.
And even the new actors, consisting of James Earl Jones, Oscar winner Louise Fletcher, and Hollywood legend Richard Burton, don't fare much better. I know these are all talented performers, so I attribute this more to bad direction, but it's still disappointing. Plus, the Oscar-winning sound design from the original has now been relegated to cartoonish monster noises and sound effects that sound like an Atari game. Even the film's composer, the legendary Ennio Morricone, feels completely out of his element here. His tracks seem more fitting for an Exorcist spoof than a sequel. And even the one decent song he recorded, Reagan's Theme, while it has a nice sound, it doesn't match the film's tone. So after all that, it's probably even pointless to ask, but is Exorcist II an underrated sequel?
No. No, not at all. This is not even close to an underrated sequel. I mean, sure, the production values are high, and it at least tries to take the series in an interesting new direction, but any good intentions it had are ruined thanks to acting ranging from bland to overwrought, an incredibly confused screenplay, and a shocking lack of suspense.
The film comes so close to being so bad it's good, but it's just competent enough to prevent that. So as a result, it's a bad movie, but not bad enough to enjoy in an ironic way.
Alright, thank you so much for watching this video. Let me know what you thought of Exorcist II by leaving me a comment below. And if you like what you saw and you want to see more, click subscribe and tune in every Monday for our new video. I've also got links to some of my previous videos right over there, as well as links to my social media pages in the description box below. See you next time.